Welcome back to another episode of the Todd Durkin Impact Show. And I hope you're feeling fired up today because I know I am. Matter of fact, you are in for a treat today. Had a great workout this morning, feeling like $1,000,000. We're in the middle of a hero series right now. By the way, are you loving the hero series? Can I get an amen? Anyone who's loving the hero series? Yeah, thank you very much. I heard y'all. Light those neighborhoods up. Get out there and pound the pavement. I want to make sure that you're listening in and you're spreading the gospel of motivation and inspiration. Matter of fact, all of the DMs, thank you for the feedback. Thank you for sharing the previous episodes thus far in the hero series. It all kicked off episode 290 with what is a hero? And meet mine. What's a hero? Meet mine. If you have not yet listened to that episode, when you're done with this one, go back. Because I'm talking about not only iconic heroes from history, but I'm talking about everyday heroes that are walking your community every single day. Everything from teachers, coaches, we're talking doctors, first aid, fire, police, you name it. We're talking everything. And even episode 291 with Elaine Lane, the wife of Jack LaLanne. Oh my goodness, one of my favorite episodes of all time. That conversation up there in Central California. You all lit the airwaves up with that one. But today, we're talking about a hero and someone I've known through a virtual online relationship via email for several years. Why? Because today I'm going to be focusing on a man who I consider a hero. A hero because he's overcome a battle in the last 5+ years as a police officer and dealing with mental health issues. As a matter of fact, I'm going to warn you now that what we are going to discuss today with Tyler Anstey is an absolute mano a mano, real talk conversation with a man who is committed and convicted of doing great things in his community in Nova Scotia, Canada. He's a police officer, and he's battled some demons. And he shared those demons with me many moons ago. And when I was doing the hero series, I said, Tyler, reached out to him, said, would you mind if I feature you, if I can share some of the things you share with me? And he said, Todd, where I'm at now with my walk, if it's going to help one person save a life, I would be honored to do that. Well, my friends, that's what we're going to have on the show today. And before we do that, I'm going to actually read an email that Tyler Anstey sent to me. And when I talk about impact, when I talk about heroes, when I think about what he shared, I'll never forget where I was at when I received this email and he shared his guts with me because I did not know who he was. Don't know him. I still haven't pressed the flesh yet with him, but check this email out. Now, again, this is deep stuff. So sit your booties back, sit up straight, or get ready to pick up your pace as you start to contemplate and think about your life. And we think about heroes. Think about this man who is serving today. He's still living today and all that he's doing. This is an email from 2018 from Tyler Anstey. Good afternoon. I'm not sure that this will reach you, but I'm sending it regardless. I'm the fella from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Police officer, father. You're a part of saving my life. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart. I need you to know that you've created impact in this Nova Scotian city. I first contacted you several years ago and was blown away when you contacted me back. Since then, I've been transferred to homicide, then to patrol, have been diagnosed with PTSD, become divorced, have completed a 16-kilometer swim for charity, most recently last year, organized a fundraiser that raised $45,000 for the Tima Conter Memorial Trust, an organization that supports military and law enforcement with mental health injuries. I've not been to work since August 2017. Depression won the battle with me, as did other symptoms of PTSD. This Boxing Day, after my son went to his mother's, I wrapped a belt around my neck. This marked the second time I contemplated suicide. The first had involved my service weapon. I know that you work with professional athletes and with the average Joes and Janes, as well as helping to create impact with people from all over the globe. You've changed more lives than I can imagine, and for that, I'm grateful. Several days ago, I reread the Wow book, then purchased the audiobook, and after nearly 6 months of inactivity, I said, no more. My doctors have overhauled my medication regime, and in the last 3 days, I've averaged 7 hours of sleep per night. For the previous 2 years, my nightly average is less than 2 hours. The Impact book came off the bookshelf. It's falling apart, but it's signed by you. And it affects me spiritually each day I open it. Today marked day 1 of the 10-week Impact program. Above the structure the book outlines, I have made several commitments. I've committed to going to bed by 10 o'clock each night, rising at 7 a.m., morning routine to include gratitude, meditation, mobility, journal, and fuel. Every morning for the past 2 weeks, I've watched your documentary, 13 Minutes of Your Life. You inspire me, brother, more than words can say. These 10 weeks will act as the brick and mortar foundation to rebuild my life, to become the father my son deserves, to once again put on a uniform, and to fulfill my BHAG of creating the first peer support organization and retreat on the East Coast of Canada. I've committed to my son, Cooper, by the end of 2018, I'll take him to the San Diego Zoo, then cruise for a week. And while I'm there, I'll knock on the doors of Fitness Quest 10, because to me, that's ground zero. A holy place. I know how busy you must be, and if you've had time to read this and potentially watch the 5-minute video I enclose, please know that I've said this with my whole heart. Though we've never met, no one's inspired me, impacted me, or instilled more confidence in me than you. There have been 2 moments in my life where I did not think I'd see the next day, and I will no longer allow myself to reach that space. I'm taking back control of my life. Mr. Durkin, Todd, please know that your videos, your wow, your dose of Durkins, your books, but most importantly, the sound of your voice inspiring others has been the greatest support I've found outside of my mental health professionals. Thank you. You've been a huge part of giving my son Cooper his father back. And for this, I love you as a brother. Gratefully, Tyler Ansey. My friends, the great news is this. Many moons later, here in March of 2023, it brings me such honor as a hero serving many people in his Nova Scotian town to share his story and what he's been doing these last several years, to be a hero, to be a great dad, to try to juggle it all. I committed in early this year that I'm going to be attacking on a crusade of mental health of all people, of all kids, ages, shapes, sizes, and levels. I don't care if you're in your teens, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or 80s, that when it comes to mental health, that we're going to attack this bad boy. And I'm going to share from the heart as I did back in 2017, 18, and everything else, just like today, the good and the bad. So let's go up to Nova Scotia right now and tune in to my friend who I cannot wait to someday press the flesh with in a big old bear hug or even an ice bath, my friend Tyler Ansey. Let's bring us up to snuff, Tyler, and I'm so happy and glad that you're thriving now as a police officer, as a father. You've got a lot of good things going on in your life, and bring me up to snuff. Like, man, how's life today?
Things are good. Cooper is 12.
Yep.
He's happy. He's healthy. He's an athlete. He's an artist. He's a poet. He's sentimental. He's just an all-around incredible kid. I'm blessed to have him. Back to work. I just wrapped up my 21st year of policing. I'm back working at the patrol level, which is where we all start. So things have kind of come full circle. I went from patrol up to plainclothes in a detective role, back to the patrol level, which is kind of where you spend the most time with the public, the most time with the community. And I think that's where I'm the happiest. Madly in love, getting married this year.
Let's go.
About that. Yeah. So happy about that. So turned 43 this last Saturday. So I'm getting kind of a second start at life, a little later in life, but I'm happy and I'm healthy. It's not one of those things. It's, you know, I've constantly, when it comes to post-traumatic stress, I've, you know, I try not to liken it to anything serious like cancer, for example, but it's one of those things where once you have that diagnosis that you have post-traumatic stress,
yep.
It's one of those things that I don't know that you ever don't have. So it's not something that you ever think, you know, hey, this has gone away. You know, you're cognizant of it each and every single day. And I would think kind of like somebody, you know, an athlete that you might train who's had, you know, you yourself, where you've had knee injuries, you've had knee operations. You're always cognizant that there's something there. Yep. So you're always keeping an eye on it, because if you have a rough day and I wake up one day and I don't want to get out of bed, then I think, you know, is it PTS again? You know, is that sneaking in? Are those demons sneaking in? Or am I just a normal human being having a bad day? Which we're all entitled to. Yep. And so what am I going to do to get past that? And something that I remind myself on a daily basis, and I remind other people as well. It's okay to have bad days.
True.
Like, we're not supposed to be perfect. We're not supposed to be happy. We're not supposed to be bouncing off the walls with enthusiasm. I know you bounce off the walls with enthusiasm all the time. But I think, and some people may think that, but we all have those days and those times where we just need to shut things down and we just need to be okay with just chilling.
Yeah, preach. Because people are like, you ever have bad days? I'm like, heck yeah, I have bad days too, right? I mean, everyone, to your point, has got bad days. What do you do on your bad days? Are there things that you do that help you through the bad days?
Yeah, it's evolved over the years. As things have gotten better, you know, things have never really been linear. And I use the analogy of, you know, when I was diagnosed, you know, years ago, I think my initial diagnosis came in very early in 2017. I look at that as kind of like my Everest base camp. And that's my ground zero, if you will. And, you know, in weight training or sport training, oftentimes, you know, you look for that linear progress. You look for that, you know, I'm going to PR on Monday, and then on Wednesday, I'm going to a little better, Thursday. But it's tangible. Like, you can see my weight's gone up in the gym. My weight's gone down on the scale. But with mental health, it's not that. You can't, there's nothing that you can measure. There's nothing that you can look at. And that's really challenging for me and for a lot of people. You don't have the ability to say, hey, today I'm 3% better. So I'm going to go from here. So for me, some of the things that have been able to help consistently, journaling played a huge role in it. Yep. Because I can write everything down. I can look at, you know, this is how I feel today. In journaling, I know some people have a pattern. They might want to write in the mornings. They might want to write at the evenings. I have 35 notebooks on the go at any given time.
I love it.
You know, I've got some in my car. I have some at the office. I have some in my house. And it's, you know, if I need to write something down, I'll write something down and just get it on paper. And then I can look back. I can say, you know, the same way those emails, you know, act as kind of our history books. I can look back at the emails that I've sent you and say, well, on this date, this is where I was at. Yep. So you can reflect on the journal as well. You know, I'm a big person for, I don't know if you want to call them mementos, but, you and I both, you know, I'm an avid reader. I think my Audible account is somewhere around like 900 books. Wow. And I've got a few hundred hardcover books. I've got some sitting in front of me right now that mean a lot to me. And so I'm constantly reading. And I think that for a lot of people, like I know you, when you're in the gym, you love pounding that Rocky soundtrack. Well, for me, depending upon where my brain is at, I'll pull a podcast that I know is going to get my mind right, or I'll pull a book I know that's going to keep my mind right. And from that, I take little snippets from that, you know, and then I also have, these mementos. Like I've got a Rudy Rudiger from the movie Rudy. I bought like an autographed play to win, one of the Notre Dame signs that they're all smashing. So I've got the Rudy Rudiger autograph. That I've got one of his helmets that's been autographed. I bought a Drew Brees helmet. I picked up an Urban Meyer helmet. And all connected. Yeah. So I can touch base so that on those times where I don't necessarily know where to plug my mind into, if I'm having a bad day or I'm trying to think of, something that might be going wrong, I can tap into something that brings me back and kind of gets me to put my feet where, stay where my feet are, if you will.
Yeah. So mementos, working out. What about what do the ice baths fit in? Because I love your social media when I see you like floating either. Sometimes it's in a frozen lake. I'm like, what is he doing? This is great. How does that fit into your whole routine?
Started off with a fellow that I know, one of my closest friends is former military, and he had some experience with it. And he said, "Hey man, why don't you give it a try?" And this was a few years back, and I did it. And the first time I think I went into my waist for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. The water was 0 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is Fahrenheit, but 32. It's cold and it hurts. And it was just that. It was just an experience. It was just, hey, I got the cold water. And I went home that night and I slept better than I had slept before. And, when it comes to post-traumatic stress, we have symptoms that include everything, anxiety, hypervigilance, hyperarousal, depression. The list goes on. There's a fairly lengthy list of them, but sleep deprivation is a huge one. And for me, I was getting, I might get an hour of sleep a night, and I might get 3 minutes of deep sleep, and I might get 5 minutes of REM sleep, and the rest of it was just broken, terrible sleep. Wait,
you were sleeping an hour?
I was working back when I was acutely ill, before I had, what I consider, a legitimate breakdown. I was working a 4-day work cycle, 4 12-hour shifts, and I wasn't sleeping for 4 days. I just couldn't.
Gosh.
And at that time, a lot of it was, I was having some very significant and some very horrific night terrors, they call them. They escalate from nightmares to night terrors. But I just wasn't getting any of that regenerative sleep. And I think, you would know far better than I am, when you're not sleeping, you're not growing, nothing's rebuilding, everything's falling apart, your mood is, and it just it was a catalyst for everything to be worse. And, over the years, it had gotten to a point where I was starting to get, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. Nightmares would still be there. The night terrors would still be there. I'd wake up terrified, sweating, screaming, turning over, rustling in my bed. But on those nights, you just wake up and you're just a walking zombie.
Of course.
And started getting into the cold. And when I started kind of embracing the cold, at first I was just doing it kind of sight unseen. I was, I'd get in the cold and I'd sit in the cold for half a minute to a minute to 3 minutes. And that night I'd sleep a little bit better. And that's when I started kind of really starting to study it a little bit more. I know you've mentioned Wim Hof, his breathing techniques, his ice techniques. So I started researching his information. I took one of his fundamentals course, read all of his books, his research. And to me, the cold has had several applications to it now. And I got to preface, like at one point, not, probably around when I sent you that email, I think I was taking 18 prescription pills a day.
Jeez.
I always throw back and I look back to the very first time I read your very first book, where you talk about Lee, and when you talk about the pills that you had been on. Yep. And that was one of the things that always, kept me wanting to stay connected with you. And I had gotten off of all those pills. So I'd gone from 18 pills to 1, but I'd introduced some healthy things. And the cold was the first one where I said, This is medicine. This is not, not some placebo effect. This is something that really helps. And, from a parasympathetic, system aspect of things, the nervous system aspect of things, that I'm not qualified to articulate well, I knew that it started to work. I knew that I was sleeping better. I knew that I hated how I felt getting into the water, but I loved how I felt getting out of the water. And when I did that and I started kind of learning about things, I also started to parlay it a little bit into policing. And with me, policing is, aspects of it are stressful, but it doesn't always have to be stressful. But what ends up happening, regardless of the time of the day, if it's 2:00 in the morning and dispatch rings out a call and says, hey, can I get you to respond to this particular incident? Your adrenaline goes up, your cortisol levels go up, all those hormone levels access. And that constant up and down isn't healthy at all for anybody. And when that starts getting out of whack and your stress keeps going up and up and up and up and up and up and up, that's when we see our guys having a lot of problems. And what the cold started doing for me is it started introducing, kind of microdosing, if you will, little moments of stress. And so what I found was the natural reaction when you jump into the cold, or when you walk into the cold, is to go.
That's right.
And that's the body's natural reaction.
Sure.
It's panic, it's stress, it's fight or flight, it's get me out of this. And fight or flight is the same thing that causes that host of activities that go down to post-traumatic stress. And so I was able to kind of put my toe in the shallow end, if you will, and I could touch it, and then I could touch it, and then I could touch the cold a little bit more. And that was teaching my brain through repetition in a safe way that my mind was saying, hey, stress doesn't have to be bad. When I introduced that stress, I would start it with proper breathing techniques so that instead of my mind going,
that's right,
things were slow, things were calm, things were chill, you get into it, and then it was just chill. And I think at one point last year, now mind you, and I don't recommend this for anybody, I did it by accident, to be perfectly honest. I got out in the cold. I was up to about here. It was a spectacular March day. The water was still 0 degrees. But I found this spot in the lake where I was kind of looking up at the sun, and I had been in there for 27 minutes. But I was completely meditative. Like I found this respiration, pause that I was happy in. And then I looked at my watch and I thought, I was like, wow, I've been in here too long. I got out. And then I immediately knew that I'd been in there too long, and I started actively warming up. So I don't recommend that. But my body and my mind had found that kind of that happiness equation, if you will, with that daily stress. And I see it in policing now. I see it when I go to a call where, the adrenaline is supposed to amp up.
Yep.
And I just automatically start breathing.
Folks, remember, we're not recommending 27-minute ice baths.
No. Like I said, it was a complete accident, right? I didn't mean to, but it just showed me what the mind and the body was capable.
T, how often are you doing the ice baths now? How many days a week?
2 days. No, every second day, optimally. Sometimes I miss a couple of days, and I usually go back to it when you ask, what do I do when I'm having those bad days? If I notice bringing a couple of bad days together, that's when I'll say to myself, hey man, I got to jump in the cold. And I get into it that way.
Got it. So take me back. I'm really curious. In your darkest days, during those darkest days, how did you pull yourself back up? How did you not do what you set out to do? Take me back. If someone's, ever been in that situation, your darkest days, now you're thriving, but I want to know, how the heck did you get out of that funk that would have changed a lot of people's lives and allowed you to do what you do now? How do you get out of that?
I gotta be honest. I've had a couple scary moments. The first time that I had essentially given up. was a day that I ended up in my personal vehicle with my work firearm. And, I'm blessed to have some tremendous people that I work with. And I'm blessed to have some incredible people in my life. And on that particular day, and it was, I can still chase it back. I think it was January the 5th, 2015.
Wow. You remember that day? Interesting.
I can tell you everything about that day. I can tell you, when I went to the office and picked up my firearm. I can tell you when and where I wrote my note. I can tell you exactly where I was sitting in my car after I had driven around for a while and made the decision that now was the time. I can also tell you exactly who sent me a text while my finger was literally on the trigger. Wow. And I looked at the text message, and somebody asked me what I was up to, and I was honest with them. I told them exactly what I was doing. Wow. And he called somebody. That person called dispatch. But that, it was that momentary lapse, that momentary break. And I called a brother at work who's been a big brother since the day I got hired. Just a sobbing mess. And I'm talking like, if you can imagine a toddler who, can't have a cookie, like just a train wreck breakdown. And I just said, I need you to come get me. And he had no idea what for. He didn't know what was happening. He had no idea what was going on. I told him where I was. He was at work. And he lit up the sirens, and he came. I could hear him coming. And he brought his boss, and I literally fell into my car. Told him my gun was in there with a note. And he just sat with me. And at that point, we have like an employee and family assistance program here that's set up to support us. So we have a house that we, serves as an office, but a safe space. So they took me there. They called a few other people, and then everybody took me to the hospital. And I was blessed because, the people who came to help me that day in uniform made the effort to change out of uniform. They took me to the hospital. They went in to check to make sure that there were no other police officers around. They wanted to respect my privacy. And they took me into the hospital that day. And then they just sat with me until I was seen by a doctor. And, and that was a day that I got to be honest with you. We just chalked up to the kids having a hard time. I hadn't been diagnosed with anything at that point. That was 2 years before I was officially diagnosed.
Interesting.
And so from then it was, I was very lucky in that moment to be surrounded by amazing people. I was off work for a short period of time. And during that short period of time, I had people checking in. I had people talking to me. I had people making sure that I was okay. But at that point, you thought it was just time that I needed. It wasn't until a year and a half, 2 years later, when I was at work and I knew things were bad. I knew I wasn't sleeping. I knew, things weren't good. I wasn't a good person. Everything was falling apart. I've never been a drinker. I've never been a smoker. And we all turn to, everybody turns to different vices.
Yep. Preaching.
We have challenges. So, I was falling apart in that capacity, and I went to work one day, and halfway through a night shift, I had that same, everything came crashing down. I couldn't stop crying. And I called a friend of mine who's a paramedic, and he brought an ambulance to my police station, picked me up, took me to the hospital, and this is just me. I can't speak for anybody else. I think I've had 4 admissions, to our mental health hospital here in Halifax. And I've been very fortunate to have had some incredible treatment from some amazing professionals. But for me, one of the things that, and I have a couple points I want to mention if you'll let me, but I'm very proud of the fact that right now I don't have to take medication to help with my mind so much. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for medication. Everybody's different. But in that moment, when I was sick, when I was really not well, meds helped to, to slow that dam, to kind of slow things down a little bit. Meds afforded me time, I think. People will say almost, callously that suicide is a permanent problem to a short time, or a permanent solution to a short time problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds a little bit, it sounds extremely callous, but I truly believe that if you can get through whatever you have to do to get through that darkness.
Yep.
And I don't care if that means that you've got to lock yourself in a room with your best friend for 24 hours. It doesn't matter if it's medication, it's the hospital, whatever you have to do to get through that momentary darkness. It does. That little bit of light will seep in. Will seep in. And so I was lucky to have access to the hospital. I was lucky to have access to people who would come to see me at the hospital.
Yep.
I hated how the medication made me feel, but it kept me going. So I could start moving forward. A lot of people in my situation, a lot of people that I've seen in my situation, we tend to wait for somebody to fix us. And I've seen all too many times, when the first responder, scenario, my police department broke me, or my job broke me, or this event broke me. You don't have to blame anything or anybody. If you want to call yourself broke, you're broke. But we can put ourselves back together. And so for me, I think one of the things that was very important, a lesson that I had to learn very quickly, was perspective, in that nobody was at fault. I can list, 15 traumatic events off the top of my head that had an effect, but blaming any of that wasn't going to help anything. And so being angry at that wasn't going to help anything. Feeling guilt about those things wasn't going to help anything. It was accepting the fact that, hey, you're here. And so when you talk about some of the things that I started doing, I've always been an avid reader. And at that point, I started getting into Stoic philosophy and reading Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and Seneca and the greats, and their position on sounding lame isn't going to help anything. All that's going to do is stall things. I picked up a book on leadership by Urban Meyer, and he talked, and this is back when he was with Ohio State, and he was working with Brian Kite and people like that, and he talked about eliminate BCDs. He wanted to change the culture, eliminate BCDs, eliminate blaming, defending, and complaining. And I said, hey, perspective, stop blaming work, right? It's not work's fault. I read another book that, and again, some people go to music, some people go to faith, some people I read something else that I picked a little bit up from that talked about, injuries. And one of the things that I've always loved about, and again, going back to your first impact body plan, you wanted the holistic piece.
Yep.
Right. You didn't want to just treat one single thing. And so I took from that, I couldn't just rely on seeing my therapist once a week.
That's right.
People aren't going to have the benefits that they could have if you go see TD for an hour a week, and that's the only physical training you do. You're going to see some benefit, but you're not going to optimize it.
That's right. Exactly.
And so for me, I started saying, this has to become a full-time job if I'm going to get healthy, if I'm going to get back to what I love, because I had identified my purpose. I have a son, and at the time I was a single father. And so I knew that my mission was to be the best father I could be for him. And because I had that purpose, because I had that sole objective, I had something to push for. And so I started putting things around me. I started, I had an incredible therapist, but then I started studying Stoic philosophy. Then I started studying leadership. Then I started, reading biographies. And all of those things you can kind of take things from, and you learn lessons that were powerful and that I still keep in my back pocket.
So Tyler, it sounds like obviously the reading and the Stoic philosophy, all this is what's getting you going. But really what got you out of the darkest hours was you had friends and you got professional help that allowed you to pull you out of that hole that you were in, right? So, by the way, thank you for sharing. I mean, thank you. My hope is in this hero series is by you being so vulnerable and so open with what you have gone through and continue to battle, right? We all battle with every day. We got to read and do the things we talk about all the time to stay on track. And we're still going to have bad days. But one of the reasons why I wanted you on was because when you agreed to share your story, because you've done it openly, and your brothers and sisters in arms back there know your story and what you're doing now, I say thank you. And I look at you as a hero because you're saving lives now. And my final question is this. Do you feel that because of your walk and your struggles and what you've been through, hell and back, and now you just shared, Cooper is one of the reasons what keeps you going and your purpose at 12 years old, but in some weird way, has this helped you as a police officer, or do you find yourself serving more people on the beat who are going through some struggles, and your empathy and compassion as a police officer is a little bit different probably now in 2023 than it was in 2015 and before, and 16 and 17, because of your own journey and your own story? Do you feel that that's part of what makes you a better police officer today?
Yeah, on a couple levels. And I mean, post-traumatic stress is a term that has become very popular or very familiar over the last couple of years, especially. But post-traumatic growth is a term that doesn't get used nearly enough. And I'm a believer that post-traumatic, people will say a setback is a setup for a comeback. On a much deeper scale, being suicidal has allowed me to be better for people at work who are suicidal. I'm able to recognize on a professional level, on a personal level, some of the trigger points, if you will, that led to me being hospitalized.
Yep.
And so now it's easier for me to watch out for that for other members around me, especially the junior people who haven't really kind of sunk their teeth into the career yet, who are just learning and mastering that craft. It's a lifelong endeavor, but being able to kind of, even if it's from a distance, being able to kind of watch over some of the junior members, it's a privilege to be able to say, I don't want you to end up where I was, so I'll do whatever I can where possible to make sure that doesn't happen for you. But at the same time, policing's changed a lot over the years. And, we spend a tremendous amount of time working with the mental health community and with marginalized communities. And so, things like communication, we get judged by the tools that are around our waist at work. Our best tool is always going to be our ability to talk, our ability to communicate, our ability to empathize, our ability to put ourselves in the position that, the people that we're dealing with are. And in that capacity, I'd like to think that I've always been pretty good at that. But understanding what it's like, when I take somebody to the hospital now at work, I'm taking them to the exact same room that I've been to.
Yep.
I'm sitting in a mental health room with somebody that I've been sitting in on the flip side of things. And so I'm able to put myself there. And the most powerful thing, and it's happened a few times to me as well, when you're talking with somebody and they say to you, man, you have no idea what I'm going through.
You're like, yes, I do.
And I can say, but I do. And I think you've seen the picture of it on my wrist. I have never give up, ever, tattooed on the inside of my wrist. And when I'd been in the hospital, I would write that on the inside of my wrist. It's kind of right here on the inside of my wrist. I would write that every day. And so, and I would look at it every day. And then I took a picture of it and I would start posting it and and using that as a catalyst to kind of push forward. But so there have been times where people have said to me at work, you don't understand what I'm going through. And I can say, hold up.
Yep.
And I'll take my watch off and I'll show it to them. And I'll be as vulnerable with them. If they'll give me that privilege, I'll be as vulnerable with them as it can be. And there have been times where I've dealt with, I've had the ability to deal with some former military members, who, they were in a position where they didn't think anybody knew what they were going through, where things can escalate and maybe things don't end up all that well, but you can really humanize what's going on. And when they see that they have an ally in someone who knows what they're going through, they then become vulnerable.
Yep.
And that vulnerability allows you to connect. And even that one connection, that one pause point, that might be the pause that they need to get through that night, maybe to get through to the hospital, maybe to get through to that one piece of help that they need. And that's been one of the biggest things that I've loved. And that's a huge reason why I love going back to patrol. Even though it has its challenges, working shift work and whatnot, I have the chances to go to those calls. I have the chances to talk with people and put the time in. And that, Cooper, like I say, my little man has been my one and only purpose for years and years and years. I am lucky to have fallen in love with a beautiful woman who's also a first responder. She's a firefighter paramedic. She has two beautiful boys. I now have my family purpose is growing. But I still have a profession that 21 years in, even when, and I know in the States, they see it a little bit more than we do in Canada, where there's some people don't like the police all that much right now.
Yep.
I still have a career that I love going to. And so having gone through being sick and recognizing what growth can be.
Thank you. Yep.
Not to use the cliche, there's light at the end of the tunnel, but Todd, things can be better than you could have ever imagined. And I get more fulfillment now because of what I've gone through.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those things where, you still have it. I still have that touch point. There's still the suicide will always be a part of my life. And because there is that relationship where I've had that touch with that.
Yep.
That I force it to keep me grounded. I force it to make sure that I know where my feet are. And I just keep trying to find ways to get better.
Tyler, if you were to write a book, what would the name of the book be?
It's already written in my head. Grateful Warrior.
Grateful Warrior.
Grateful Warrior.
Something would never give up too. Well, listen, I want to say thank you because you are a hero, and obviously to Cooper, right? And I know that, but to many other people because of how open, vulnerable you have been throughout not only this podcast, but in sharing your own journey. I want to say thank you. And I hope that your words have given someone inspiration today and the ability to think that, man, even in your darkest of times. And I think most people today are battling something. Can I get an amen? Anyone? Can I get an amen? Is anyone battling anything? Like, amen, TD. Like, many people are battling a lot of stuff. You're like, you have no idea what you were saying earlier, Tyler, but we're all battling something. And when you hear a story of what Tyler Ansie's talking about, just know, I want you to follow Tyler. Tyler, what's the best way for someone to want to follow your journey and what you're doing?
My Instagram is it's me and my family. It's just Cooper's dad, Tyler.
Cooper's dad, Tyler. Cooper's dad, Tyler. I will put that in the show notes. Follow this brother, because let me tell you what, I don't know if it's going to be me in Nova Scotia, you coming to San Diego, but brother, when I see you live and get to press the flesh and give you a big old bear hug or an ice bath.
We're coming to San Diego.
Man, you come to San Diego. It is going to be awesome. And I'm so happy and proud for you. And I'm so excited for your future with your future bride and for Cooper on that, and everything from your darkest hours on up to what you're doing today. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And then with this, if you had 60 seconds or less, let's start the stopwatch, and you're speaking to someone right now who needs your words that only Tyler Rancy can deliver, go ahead. You had 60 seconds and speak to that man or woman right now.
I would say if you need help, you got to reach out for it. Be humble, be vulnerable. Don't let stigma, don't let peer pressure, don't let what your coworkers might think. If you're struggling, say you need help. Don't ask for it. Scream it from the mountaintops. We wait too long, and by then it's too late. If you need help, ask for it. If you see somebody that needs help, hey man, I don't mean to interrupt. I don't mean to be in your business, but I'm worried about you. I'm here for you if you need me. I think at that critical moment, we need to just put it all aside and be humble and say, I'm in trouble. I'm scared and I need help. And it goes both ways, in our communities where, whether you're an athlete, whether or not you're a police officer or first responder, we're too alpha, oh, he's okay, he'll walk it off. He's okay, he'll have a drink tonight. If you see somebody that you think is struggling, if you're, if the hair on your neck is standing up saying, hey, I'm worried about somebody, do something about it, because the next day may be too late. And if you're that person that needs help, there is help. Sometimes you got to work for it. Sometimes it's not that easy as picking somebody. Sometimes you're going to have to put in the work, but it's worth it. Wow.
Tyler Rancy, thank you so much for being you. Cannot wait to see you in San Diego or wherever it is. Folks, do me a favor. Do Tyler a favor. If this spoke to you in any way, or you know someone who needs to hear these words today, can you please forward this message? Make sure you share the podcast. As always, many people can benefit from this all over the world, all over the globe. So please share it. Share these beautiful words that were so eloquently shared by Tyler today on that. Tyler Rancy, go have a great day. Thank you for what you do. Keep fighting, keep battling, and never give up, brother. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Wow. Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you all for listening to this episode. I shared in the beginning that I was committed to making sure that I shared the good, the bad, the ugly, the things that I believe is real talk, that's authentic. And sometimes, when you smell success and significance, it always don't smell like peaches and cream. And the story of Tyler really inspires me. And that's why I wanted him on here to share what he's been through, because I think of the thousands of people who he's helped in his career thus far, and just celebrating 21 years in law enforcement. I thank all of you men and women who continue to serve your communities through thick and thin, through good times and bad. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do and all that you go through at all times of the day and night. When I was reflecting and reviewing back on this episode, one of the things I look back on that episode, on the email that Tyler sent me, I'm going to end with this. This is the email I responded to Tyler with back 5 years ago. Wow, oh, wow, Tyler. I am printing your email off and hanging it in my home office. This is why I do what I do. And it's letters like this that remind me of the important role that we all have, you included. Tyler, first, thank you for not doing the unthinkable on that one particular day. 2, keep battling, man. I'm here for you, and you can do this. I love that you've already started the process. Hashtag win the day. 3, yes, indeed. As far as coming to Fitness Quest 10 when you're out here, let's make that happen. Let me know when you'll be here, and I'll make sure that I'm here as long as I'm in town. That would be an epic moment to meet you and your son, Cooper. My man, I'm heading out to town right now to teach you Perform Better, but needed to get back to you before I left. Thank you, Tyler. Seriously, thank you for being who you are. Remember, you do have a life worth telling a story about, and you're crafting up the most amazing story you could imagine, and I can't wait to share it someday, Tyler. Talk to you soon, my friend, Todd. Interesting enough, that was 5 years ago, almost to the day. Almost to the day, and here I am sharing the story of Tyler. And I'm so grateful and thankful that he's still alive and he's still doing great things. My friends, I want to remind you of the power within you. Like I shared with Tyler, what would be one thing that you'd have to say with someone who's down and out? Because I do believe that nowadays, every single day, we've got to battle and win the battle between the ears, right? We got this dome that we've got to make sure that we get right. Get your mind right. Get your mind right. Get your mind right. Right now, today, whether it's a high or a low lows or somewhere in between, I want to remind you of who you are, where you come from, and to never give up. Heck, Tyler has it imprinted in the middle of his wrist. Never give up. I want to remind you the power of not only who you are today, but where you come from and where you came from. And that power is within you, because someday when I share your story and what you've overcome, my friend, now is not the time to give up. Now's the time to dig deep and to come together like a band of brothers and sisters and know that you're built for this. We'll get through this. All you kiddos out there, I love you. You keep battling. I want to share your story. The world needs more superheroes. The world needs more people to give back and light, and not just on social media, but when you're walking the hallways of your school or at work or in the church or in your organization, whatever it is that you do. I want you to smile right now if you're out walking or jogging. Give somebody a wave and say, hey, you look great today. And just watch how your interaction changes and shifts the vibration and the energy of the world. Thank you so much. I love you guys. I don't want this to end because I know that each and every one of us are battling, and every single day we got to go out and win the day. Thank you. God bless you. And remember to train hard, eat right, live inspired, never give up, and go create impact. You, wait, you're still here. You're hoping I say more stuff, don't you? Hey, listen, if it ever gets so bad, I want to remind you what Tyler said. If it's ever so bad that you just don't know if you can keep going, you call 911. 911. When you reach out, you talk about strong and being strong. When you got to reach out, you reach out. And then when you're done calling 911, you get through this. When you get through this, reach out to me and let me know of your story. Because let me tell you what, I know that each and every one of us has a life worth telling a story about. And so do you. I love you. God bless you, and continue to fight the good fight. Get your mind right. Get your body right. Get your soul right. And go out and spread the love, baby. Peace. God bless y'all.